Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Neo Marketing Podcast. Kyle Golding, Pritch Pritchard. Today, we're going to talk about the Corona economy, how businesses need to adapt, adopt, possibly even pivot in order to survive this crisis. Good stuff. Stay tuned. Welcome to the Golden Group Neo Marketing Podcast, a bi-weekly discussion of modern business communication. Good morning, Pritch. How are you today?
I'm doing great, Kyle. How about yourself?
I'm feeling well. We're both healthy, which is great right now. A lot of focus on everyone staying healthy, and
exactly.
we're keeping our social distancing. We're sitting across the table from each other.
Right.
We're not right up on each other like we're not supposed to. And of course, any person who is listening to this podcast, watching the video series, doesn't live under a rock, understands the entire world is being affected by coronavirus right now, right? COVID-19, coronavirus. This is a business podcast. So we're going to talk about how businesses need to adapt, adopt, or possibly even pivot their business model temporarily, and then what happens long term. There's a lot of confusion, a lot of stress, especially small businesses. The smaller businesses, the more they're being affected by coronavirus. But there isn't a human being not being affected by it, and I don't think there's really a business outside of some government entities and whatnot that at least haven't had to make some minor changes in the day-to-day operations through majorly, literally being completely shut down by government restrictions. And so we're going to have conversations on that whole range of what you need to be doing. That's adapting. Right. There's adopting new practices. And then if your business is literally shut down or you're in a spot where you can't operate the way you normally do, you're going to need to pivot or go under.
Right. And we don't hear enough about that in the media today.
And the problem with when businesses go under, it's not just the people who own the business and not just the employees that work there, but all the contractors, the subcontractors, the vendors. Yep. It's the tax base in the community. There's a lot of aspects of why small business is the backbone of this country. The majority of people are employed by small businesses, and the majority of the tax base, especially on a local level, comes from small businesses. It's really important for us to help small businesses survive this issue. Now, it's temporary, as in it's not permanent, but it's not temporary and like it's going to finish up this week.
Right.
Exactly. So that's why we need immediate, long-term, and then how we go back conversations. And so I'm ready to go for it. You ready for that?
Let's go for it.
We're going to talk about the during, after, and the future of business, minor to major, big and small businesses, and how to find the opportunities in this conflict, in the struggle, and how to do it ethically.
There you go.
All the things that we typically. That's right. We always talk about ethics. We're talking about how to create advantage in an ethical way that's beneficial for you and your business, and for your employees and your community.
Absolutely.
So, and I took a lot of notes today, which typically just kind of talk, but I really took some notes today because I really want to specifically give some detailed information for everyone. I have a lot of notes and links in the description. So look below. If you're watching on YouTube, if you're listening on iTunes, go to our website. It'll all be posted there as well to help everyone figure out how to do this. If you're a business owner, business manager, decision maker, or you think your boss needs to hear this, share this with your boss. If your boss isn't changing because of coronavirus, because everyone needs to. Obviously, we have industries that are the hardest hit. And for us, we have clients in all of these spaces, and they're really getting smashed because essentially government regulations about crowd size and other things just won't let them operate at all. Concerts, the artist and the production facilities. There's more than just, when the Foo Fighters have to cancel their tour, a lot of people don't get to work in production, in ticket sales, in T-shirt sales, in manufacturing, all those things. So the concert industry, the production, live event industry is really hurt. Trade shows and industry events of that nature. The wedding industry is really, because you can't put, first it was 50, then it was 10. Now some places they're saying 2 people, which is not a crowd, that's a pair. I don't even know how that works. Event planners are being directly affected by this. They plan weddings, fundraising, professional events, nonprofit groups are being affected. The Oklahoma Venture Forum, our professional group that we're a part of, our next meeting has been canceled. Our end of the year awards event is questionable for now. We're going to find alternative ways to make those things happen, but they're being affected.
But that's exactly what we're talking about.
Yeah, right. How to make it happen.
How to work around it.
My wife is a nonprofit, and a lot of nonprofits are really hurt right now because they can't do fundraising events.
Right.
They can't And so
volunteers can't help.
That's right. Obviously, hospitality is being affected. We're going to talk about restaurants specifically, but bars and clubs are really, essentially become non-essential.
Yep.
And are being shut down. You know, what do they do if you own those things? Sporting events, movie theaters, your local gym.
Yep.
All these things are being affected. They're really crunched because their whole business model is the equipment that they own, the space that they work in, and the need for that many people to show up at a time for the event to be profitable.
Right.
And so they are really getting crushed right now. They need to pivot. They got to make major changes. We got lots of layoffs, lots of, and the problem is when you lay off, where do those people go? Because what their expertise is in demand. You can't really just sell off a lot of equipment or a lot of things like that because no one's buying it.
Right.
That makes it even harder for them. Those folks, honestly, I can't give them advice on this podcast because it's a major upheaval. Call your experts, call your third-party experts. It may seem tempting to stop spending money on marketing, business development right now. If you're one of those industries that's getting killed, you better spend what money you have left on business development, on figuring out how you can do business of some sort on some sort of scale, or use your assets or loan against it or something to get through this. Right. And I hope this is a 3 to 6 month scenario. I truly don't see the economy in this country surviving 12, 18, 24 months of real shutdown like this. But the last ones to come online are the ones that are really getting crushed right now, the concerts and sporting events and things, really large events. So those businesses are going to have major moves, and they really need direct outside input from third-party individuals who are going to bring them some really creative ideas on how to, and it's going to be situational. It depends on how much money they have in the bank, what they're building, all the things that come along with that.
Don't you think eventually, though, everybody's going to rush back into those spaces? But this is talking about how do you bridge it?
How do you keep
How do you keep
from going bankrupt between them? And I know there's a whole, the government's going to give checks and These businesses, a couple $1,000s here and there, even getting business loans, only goes so far if it goes a long time period. Right. There are plenty of businesses that are already adapting, and we're seeing it publicly. I think restaurants are a great example of how to adapt, right? So you can't have your dining room open, too many people in one place. So almost every restaurant on the planet that's still open has gone to curbside, to take out, to delivery. Yep. And, I've been talking about delivery service for a long time as far as the restaurant business model. In fact, I recommended all restaurants really dive into the services, Uber Eats and Postmates, etc. I really felt strong about adding that to their dining experience because it expanded their sales base. Right. Now it's their only sales.
That's the only way
to
stay.
That's right.
Stay in business.
And so they're seeing it. And in fact, I was even recommending that people could open restaurants that were virtual, like they didn't have a dining room.
Right.
Well, here you are.
Right.
You could be operating. You're operating your operations virtual now.
Yeah. There were a number of stories before the coronavirus about the utility kitchens where food was being prepared for several restaurants and delivered straight from there.
Yep, collaborative workspaces in the food space, because the food industry, the equipment necessary, the infrastructure necessary to have, especially large scale like catering kitchens, so expensive. Don't buy one for yourself for a couple $100,000. Put one together and charge other people to use it when you're not using it.
Exactly.
It's one of those, if it's not running 24/7, 365, it's losing money kind of scenarios.
Right.
Retailers are adapting. Same thing. You can't go shopping in the mall or at, even in your large big box retail. I bought a new battery for the GoPro yesterday. I ordered it online. They sent me an email. It's ready. I drove up. They had the signs out front. Parked in the spot. Hit the little text button that says I'm in spot number 4. Gentleman runs it out to my car, never left the car. No contact. Yep. So retailers are going full in into online sales, and then delivery straight to your house or curbside pickup, etc.
Right.
And they're doing a good job of that. Education. Schools are closed.
We're totally online now until the end of the semester.
Right.
And there'll be some kind of a graduation, I'm sure, but I'm also sure it's going to be virtual.
It's going to be
early May.
Very limited. It is going to be more of an online scenario. It's going to be virtual, like you were saying. It's going to be different.
Yep.
And then there's lessons to learn from that, how to supplement the traditional educational experience.
Yep, absolutely.
B2B businesses. So a lot of people are like, hey, spend your money local, go to local restaurants, get your takeout food and go to your local retailers because they need the support.
Right.
It's a lot harder for B2B because consumers can't just, hey, I bought some extra stuff today from you guys because I'm trying to support you. And typically, like we're in the B2B industry. When businesses contract, the first thing they start doing is contracting their subcontractors and
right.
their vendors.
Right.
And that sort of bad news rolls downhill.
Absolutely.
That's why it's important to support our B2C businesses because they need to continue to support the B2B support system that they have. But B2B is adapting, a lot of work from home and work remote, a lot of video conferencing that have never been, they went from like, there's one person on vacation or the boss is out of town, let's do a video conference,
right.
to everything's at a video conference, right?
And I wish I'd have really been smart because Zoom has gone in the past month from 60 to 100. Yesterday it was 140.
Because they had already built the infrastructure in to scale,
Yep.
and they were prepared. And so they didn't know this would happen, but now that it has, they've been prepared. They're also doing their really good job on the PR side and on the audience community building side, giving it free to schools and things like that. So when it comes to how to take advantage ethically, Zoom is doing a great job of that.
I believe so.
Because they're
too.
giving
They're
away
a great
as much
example.
as that they're making money on.
Right, exactly.
Right. So there's tons of digital tools, online tools, mobile devices, tablets, smartphones, et cetera, that are people using to communicate, Slack and things like that, so that they can keep business operating. A lot of manufacturing are retooling.
Right.
So if you manufacture something that isn't in demand right now, high fashion apparel, things like, apparel manufacturers are going to making gowns and masks for medical professionals.
Right.
Our friends next door at DD Audio, they took their plastic forming that they use for their speaker components, and now they're making face shields for medical professionals, which is fantastic for them. All the automakers are now making ventilators for hospitals, because they have engineers, they know mechanics, they have some of the parts sitting around. Anyone with a 3D printer is making these parts available as well.
Right.
Ford and GM
distilleries are changing over to hand sanitizer.
That's true. That's right.
There's we'll put this in the notes, but there's a distillery in Ardmore that's done that.
It's Guthrie. Prairie Wolf Spirits in Guthrie.
There we go.
Shout out. That's right. Shout out to Jonathan Stranger and the folks at Prairie Wolf for converting over to, and some others around the country are doing it as well.
Exactly.
I didn't know that could happen. I had no idea that the process of making beer and spirits is the same process as making hand sanitizer.
Yeah.
Now a lot of these, and I'm reading articles about how it's done. I'm like, this is amazing that these guys and girls know how to do this. It's really cool. Elon Musk is like, hey, I can invent a better ventilator, right? We'll see if he does or not. Dyson, the Dyson folks have already come up with a ventilator. Same thing. They're like, Mr. Dyson invented a better ventilator in like 30 minutes of sketching. That dude's genius, right? MIT students are doing the same thing. And again, like I said, 3D printers are figuring out how to make things better. I read an article on LinkedIn yesterday from a medical student. Her father is an engineer. He developed a 1:4 system for ventilators. So one pump for a ventilator could run 4 patients.
4 patients.
Just got FDA approval fast track and so that's awesome. That went from an idea to a product to FDA approval. It seems like weeks instead of months and years.
Which is what needs to happen in this environment.
So the challenge and the threat out there in the world has making people adapt and be creative and create opportunities, not only just for themselves, whether they make any money off the 1:4 ventilation system. That team is now going to be a go-to for the medical device space.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. And it's what America's good at.
Yes.
Innovation.
Right.
Entrepreneurship.
I was reading just this morning about Rogue Fitness, which is kind of a CrossFit type thing. I didn't know that much about it, but reading this article that they stopped manufacturing their fitness equipment and all their apparel and all the supplemental stuff that goes with it, water bottles, et cetera. And now they're making equipment for medical and again,
the medical space.
The medical space. So, and they published a plan of how they intended to do it, how they would survive financially, et cetera. They published it.
That's awesome.
They're not publicly traded. They're a private company, but they're very transparent in it. And so their playing the long game.
Exactly.
Of you can't go to the gym and do the thing because we can't go to gyms now. Right. So you don't need the equipment and you don't need this and you don't need the extras. So instead, let's support and then I'm sure they're also giving at home workout lessons and stuff like that as well. Industries are being hit hard but aren't as visible. Like I said, the support industry, things like sales, marketing, PR, advertising, but also accounting and legal and insurance industry, because when business contracts, when things get tight, do I have to lay off employees? Do I have to not pay myself as the owner or the CEO? Or can I cut cost? Right. These are the things that cost gets cut first. But then that sort of, again, trickles downhill into what do we do as service providers, because we're trying to provide value. And I'm going to talk in a minute about how when you're providing value, it all works out for you. Okay. Continuing education programs, employee training systems, these are all things they're going to be the first thing cut. They're always the first thing cut. Right. It's a terrible idea to cut your marketing in a down economy. It's actually, you should do the exact opposite, but that's probably a whole other podcast.
That's a whole nother podcast.
Don't cut your marketing right now. Just change your focus and approach. We'll talk about that.
Okay.
Here's something people don't think about. And I think about it all day, every day. It's what I do. So I'm going to put a challenge out to you folks, business people listening to this podcast right now. When you put a business plan together, you start with a SWOT, right? We all know the SWOT. The strengths, the weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Everybody wants to do the strengths part. We're good at this. Right. We're capable at this. We'll be doing this. Right. And sometimes sometimes they start off very unrealistic, and you got to corral them down to what's realistic. But everyone has strengths, and everyone wants to focus on the strengths, and they should. Your selling point is to focus on your strengths. It's not even what your competition is doing. It's what your strengths are. That should be your focus of your marketing. Right. Now, they never, ever want to talk about weakness. Right. But if you're going to be an effective business, you have to understand your weaknesses and try to mitigate them as much as possible. Exactly. Or at the very least, put yourself in situations where your weaknesses aren't the selling point, because then you get killed by your competition where that's their strength. Right.
You have to be brutally honest at this stage.
It's internal documents, so you have to be internally honest with yourself. And but I've had clients I've done really, you listed 3 things on weaknesses? I can list 8 for you right here sitting with you. Now. So we all understand strength. We understand strength and weaknesses. Opportunities, everyone wants to talk about opportunities. We can do this, we can do that. Maybe we can do this in the future, this, right? Great. No one ever, as much as they don't want to talk about weakness, they really don't want to talk about threats. Right. Mostly because the definition of threat in my SWOT analysis is something that can affect your business that is 100% out of your control. Right. Now, typically people want to say that their competition are threats. Their competition are not threats. They're not listed under the T of the SWOT. Right. They're listed. Actually, your competition isn't a factor.
It's a separate analysis.
Right. Exactly. And complete sidebar. I'm doing that too much today. I just was one of the judges for the Loves Cup business competition for college students. Yeah. Every college student, I was really disappointed. I sent a note back to the administrators. They kept listing competition as threat.
Right. Well, or as I've found, they just list other weaknesses. Right. They're not looking externally.
But the key here, and here's what I want to talk. I want to talk about threats in your SWOT analysis. This is it. The coronavirus, the government reaction, the shutdowns, the regulations, the tightening of the industry, the stay-at-home, non-essential employees, all of that is a threat. Yep. You should have had this in your business plan. Right. If your business plan didn't have government shutdown due to pandemic, or nuclear war, or terrorism, which is a much more something maybe people would be realistic about, or nationalization of your industry, act of God, weather. We're in Oklahoma, we get weather. If you didn't have those things as threats that you could do it at the very least a basic contingency plan for, go back to your business plan right now. I know you're busy trying to figure out this coronavirus thing, but do not fail to go to the threat section of your business plan, bake this sucker in, learn these lessons from this pandemic, and make sure that it is a part of your business plan and your marketing plan moving forward from this point. Let me tell you this. If you do not do this, you are failing your business dramatically, because
big time.
This is probably not the last time that something that's a medical, whether it's intentional or not, whether it's biowarfare or just simply something that nature came up with, because the way people travel, because we're connected, we're an interglobal connective community now. This will happen again, hopefully never at this scale.
Well, and it's not just about disease. It's about supply chain disruption.
Right. Exactly.
We could have a whole separate show on that with predictions about what's going to happen to American business. But
the threat part of the SWOT is one of those, it's just like having contingency plans, crisis management protocols, all of those things that we say, yes, we're not planning on this happening, but we need it. It's the same reason you have insurance. Whenever it buys car insurance, life insurance, business insurance, health insurance, with the idea of, cool, I'm going to go get in a car wreck. I'm probably going to die soon. No one, but then this is the same thing. It's insurance for your business to have contingency plans. Even if they're basic contingency plans, it's a starting point for you. So don't take the threats and SWOTs lightly further.
I'd take this time to go back and relook the entire SWOT thing.
Well, you should be looking at your entire business plan because we're going to talk about pivoting.
Yeah, okay.
And you got to understand your business plan in order to make that happen, right?
Cool.
I told you this was a lot, folks, but I'm really trying to jam, and I'm trying to talk fast because I'm trying to jam as much as possible in this. If I talk too fast or I don't cover something deep enough, hit us in the comments, hit us on our contact links, and ask questions. We'll totally either answer your questions on social media, via email, or another episode of the Neo Marketing Podcast, I promise. So the SWOT is super important. Get back to the threat issue. So you need to be planning and executing at the same time right now. And in fact, by the time you see this on the 1st of April, when this episode goes on live, you're already a couple weeks behind. Surely you know this already, right? You should be planning for this month, this quarter, next quarter, the half year, and the full year, what this looks like 365 days from now. I don't think the economy could survive 365 days of this. I'm not saying we'll be in this situation, but we won't be 100% back to it never happened in 365 days. So you need to be thinking about that.
It'll be a new normal.
One of the problem with pivoting is in a normal time, when a pivot happens, it's because the market dictated it. Your business wasn't surviving like this, but it can be functional and beneficial like this. So you make that pivot.
Right.
It's market factors. There's a lot of, are you sure we need to do this? You got to take your time. Don't pivot quickly because it's a major issue. It's a major cost factor. This is something where if you're going to pivot, you got to pivot fast, and you might potentially pivot back. Typically, if you have a startup, you have a business of any sort, and you say, it's time to pivot. We're going from what we used to do to what we're doing now. It's a permanent move. We're doing that because that's how we'll do business for the rest of our existence.
Because we've evolved.
Right. You're in a situation now, very rare, where you have the potential to pivot and then pivot back.
Right.
So I was saying earlier about third party, go ask your third party people to help you with this.
Right.
You got to have a plan for how to pivot. It's got to be fast, but it's got to be well thought out. It's got to have the red team has got to get at it.
Yep.
Tear apart the what ifs.
Yep.
Make the decision, make it happen, move quick, and then have the ability, build a back door.
Right.
To pivot back when necessary.
Right.
Folks, we said earlier, the apparel manufacturers that are making hospital gowns and masks, it's a pivot in a way, but it's not such a pivot that they can't go back to what they have always done.
Right.
They have the same equipment, same machinery,
patterns.
the same expertise.
Right.
So it's a little bit of a pivot, but it's not. It's very temporary. They can do that.
Right.
If you retool your factory, though, that's a major pivot.
That's a major pivot.
If you let staff go and bring different staff in to make the pivot happen, that's a pretty major pivot to go back to.
Right.
So that's why first you adapt.
Right.
We've already talked about ways that industries are adapting, working at home, telecommuting, Zoom conferencing, all this other stuff through major changes. The major changes are adopting. So restaurants are adopting delivery, curbside, and other types of things that they usually do business for. When they go back to, you can open your dining room, you can keep that.
Right.
And,
absolutely.
And I really think you should.
You should.
Don't be too quick to give up the tools you put in place, especially if you spent time and money to implement them. If it's on your website now, if it's on your smartphone app, if it's on your Google listing, order online, curbside, delivery, you've signed up for Uber Eats or Postmates or any of those things, don't give it up the minute they let you open your dining room back up. Then you pivot. Adopt, adapt, pivot. Pivot's a major move. It takes a lot more work. It's a lot more cost. But if you were in those industries we started off with, this industry is really getting its ass kicked right now because of the regulations. You have to make a major pivot and do something different with your time, talent, equipment, infrastructure, etc.
Right.
If you have to, you have to. If you don't have to, if you can adapt and adopt, that's a better situation for you. But you have to go fast. You can't wait. You have to be thoughtful. You have to have a plan. You have to go work through your what ifs and your red team and your like, are we really looking at every avenue here before we do it? And then do it. When you do it, you got to commit to it 100%.
100%.
Fully get into it, right? So one of the things you need to think about when it comes to your audience is right now your audience understands that businesses are struggling not because they didn't try hard or because their CEO was greedy or anything. Your businesses are struggling because the situation changed out of everyone's control and nothing that we could have or should have planned for.
Right.
So there's a ton of goodwill from the public right now. A lot of people are eating out, like I say, buying from local restaurants, buying from local retailers, trying to support the local businesses because they want them to stay open. They want them to be a lot,
Want them to be there
viable after this is all done. Right. Yep. Exactly. That only goes so far.
Right.
If you are a restaurant offering curbside service, you still have to be good at it, or at least try really hard to be good at it. You can't have a bad attitude about it. It's still customer service. Right. If you're great at it, if you go above and beyond, even to the point of you probably maybe aren't profitable right now, but at least not taking a loss, then you have the potential to build goodwill that moves you in the future, that real loyalty and real buy-in from your audience.
You betcha.
So put your audience first. Think about what they need. Meet them halfway. It's not just enough to say, well, fine, we'll offer curbside. Try to be great at it.
Yeah.
And then, you know what I say about communication, right? Communication's a two-way process.
Yep.
Listen to what people are telling you. If the specials you're coming up with, the formula you're using, the temporary hours, the delivery service, whatever it is that you came up with in order to you to continue business for your audience, make sure that you're doing enough.
Well, and listen to the feedback too. I mean, this is where social media comes in and it's so handy. You get instant feedback. You just have to take some time to look at it and analyze it and then respond to it.
Take every opportunity to listen to your audience when they say, well, I'm happy you're open. I'm happy I could order from you, but man, it was 7 steps and it took 2 hours to get dinner or lunch.
Right. Or even something so small as I didn't get enough napkins.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
You know, little things that can make big things later. So you have goodwill now. People are spending probably more money than they would traditionally on eating out and buying local to support their business. They understand it's only going to go so far, and people's wallets are going to tighten.
Yep.
Their own budgets are going to tighten. So
Absolutely.
You have an opportunity to build great audience and great loyalty if you will meet them more than halfway.
Halfway.
Go, and again, typically I've been sitting here telling you how to find profitability. At this point, it's not about finding profitability. It's about breaking
survival.
even. It's about survival.
Right.
It's about keeping as many employees on as you can.
Right.
As you know, typical boss, owner, the business person in charge, management team, they don't want to let people go. They enjoy working with as the people they work with. So
they've built a team.
That's right. And do as much of that as possible, and then don't pull back as soon as you can. We said earlier, restaurants should not stop delivery the minute that they can open their dining rooms. Same thing with retailers. What you've learned, what the processes you learned, what you got the feedback from your customers, you should come out of this as able to do in-person and traditional versus also on top of online and virtual and everything else. If it creates better opportunities for you with your audience or creates lower costs for you with your internal employees, you know, there are plenty of people who would say, I'd love to work remote from home that never had an opportunity. Now they have the opportunity. You have the opportunity to learn from it, study it, look at the cost effectiveness, look at productivity, all these things. So don't be super quick to get back to what it is you were doing before, and then learn from this process.
Absolutely.
Learn how using those tools, creating those opportunities, going that extra mile, the feedback, all of that can help you be a better business moving forward. If you can do that, if you can survive this and have that information and have the extra tools you didn't have before because you just didn't find the time or need to invest in it, all of this moving forward, and you can add that and have a better, bigger, broader business model moving forward, you're going to come out of this better than you went into it. And that sounds crazy to say.
No,
and unfortunately, there's plenty of people right now going, dude, my business went under. Or I know people that their business went under, and we have clients that I'm very fearful for their business going under. I'm not saying everyone's going to come out better than this, but you have opportunities to do so if you really put in that extra effort.
Right.
So think of it like that. If you approach it as, I'm going to do everything I can to keep my people, keep my business open, to support my community, and learn and develop more tools and be a better business going forward because you want your business to be around for the next 100 years. You don't want to just survive this and then close down a year from now. That's the attitude you have to do. You have to go into, because the whole market has been forced to change right now. Not just you. And so the whole market will go back. And then at that point, you got to compete. You got to be different and better and connect with your audience the way you need them to. And people may get used to curbside or delivery.
Yep.
They may like it better that way. Your business model might change if the audience pushes you in that direction when the whole market goes back to normal.
Well, I'm going to throw a caution in here too, and that is that it is going to be a new normal. So don't anticipate that you're going to be able to be right back in the same spot you were before this happened. As you're talking about, take those lessons learned, be better.
Yes.
I assume that the
Go that extra
environment's
mile.
going to change.
Yep.
And be there.
Attitudes will change. People have been exposed to different things now. They know there's a different way of doing business.
Right.
Your audience may demand, I want you to go right back to where you were. And if enough of your audience does, and that's where your profitability is, fantastic, go for it. Let them push you there. Don't push them there by cutting off what you offer them. They also might demand this version of your business is what we want. This version of working for you as an employee is what I want.
Right.
And that might be the better option. And your business 365 days from now might look different than it did 3 months ago.
Right.
But if that's what's the most effective, efficient, and profitable for you, and your audience enjoys it, your employees, you get the best value out of it, go for it. Be open to the whole idea that you can come out better than you went into it.
Absolutely.
If you do that, and again, I know people are struggling, and some people have lost their business, and I'm sorry, I really am, because I understand the value of small business in this country. This is what we do.
Right.
This is what we do. We're bought in. We're the same people. We're in the same boat. If you look at everything as I'm doing my best to survive today, to provide my audience what they need and value at value, best I can, learning from, improving, come out of this on a better and build a better business that's going to be sustainable. If you have that attitude, if you're working that process, if you're putting the information down, if you're having the conversations internally, you're doing all of this, you will and can come out of this better.
Amen.
The only way you fail is to let setbacks, and setback seems like a small word for what's happening to business today,
Right.
but let setbacks of any sort, big, small, massive, tiny, when you let them stop you, that's failure. When you let that adjust you and learn from and get better at, what doesn't kill me makes me stronger,
Right.
then you have the opportunity to be highly successful even in this terrible, terrible situation.
Right. Bam.
Right. So be fast, but be thoughtful. Be fast. I don't know how many times I can say this. Speed is your friend. You do not have time to wait. Typically, major changes to business and pivots, I'm like, wow, let's slow down. Let's really take our time. Let's go. Nope. Let's get this done. This just is what it is. You're not alone in this. Do not do this alone. Have outside, impartial, outside third party. And this is something too. If you do have to stop paying vendors and subcontractors, if you do have to lay off employees, if you do have to shutter or even close or go bankrupt, talk to an impartial third party outsider who can, number one, ask you questions because they don't know the assumption to force you to justify the decision-making process. Most important, that is to justify decision-making process. Number two, they can ask you questions or give you scenarios that you may not have come up with, and you got to exhaust all of those before you go through dramatic cuts and ending of business.
Absolutely.
And there's an emotional toll to that.
Sure.
There's a personal, emotional toll to letting employees go and closing a business. And trust me, right now, the idea that my business can't survive this, personally, it hurts.
Right.
So get in conversations with other people going through the same thing. They don't have to be in your industry, but other small business owners, service providers, people whose job it is to help you navigate this is more important now than it's ever been. It's always been important to have outside people test and challenge what you're doing. We've talked about that ad nauseum on this podcast. Right now, it is critical.
Yep.
There's so many options that you may not be considering. You're too close to it. You're emotional. You're day to day. You're just trying to keep the doors open right now.
Right.
The idea of going and doing research and bringing all these options and having conversations and having someone look at you and go, I think you can do that, or I don't think you can do that,
Right.
and being realistic and not an emotional because I want to keep Rick and Sally on the payroll, but because I want to keep people on your payroll, or I need to cut them for the other 15 employees to stay employed.
Right.
It needs to be a non-emotional, and then that comes from your third-party advisors.
Right.
So
Bam.
said earlier, it's easier to cut marketing advertising right now because
Right.
it looks like a cost. if it's going to help you make the right decisions, you got to keep those things.
Exactly.
Be smart, be strategic, be flexible. Understand there is no right way to do this and wrong way to do this. It's somewhere in between. You have to find what works for you. And ultimately, you need to think about your brand over today's sales.
Right.
You always say, don't look at today's sales numbers. Don't look at this week. You got to look at sales numbers in a broader sense. Well, a lot of people are looking at today's sales numbers because it literally is, can we open the door tomorrow?
Right.
And that sucks. I'm sorry that you're going through that. But consider your brand. If you intend for this business to be open in the future, don't kill your brand by making today's sales. And I know that sounds counterintuitive because I got to make today's sales or I got to lay someone off or I got to close the door. But if you kill the brand, if you shortcut, if you become a pariah, if you become something that people go, that person, the story of this guy that bought the whole every bit of hand cleaner up in Missouri or whatever.
Oh, right, yeah.
That guy, no one ever wants to do business with him ever again, and no one's ever going to hire him to do anything ever again. His personal brand is shit, and he deserves it because he was unethical. So build your brand. Don't get so focused on sales if you can. Keep your doors open any way that you possibly can. Now, here's the flip side. There are businesses right now, because of what they do or their business model, or maybe they have some government support or something else, that this really isn't that big of a deal. And they're like, right now there are people going, I'm fine. My business is going to be fine. Mm-hmm. You still have an opportunity to create something better for your business.
Absolutely.
By going long.
Absolutely.
Play the long game.
Yeah, so congratulations. Things are going good for you, but let's continue to look long.
So, however successful your business is today and you're not being affected by this, you could be double, triple, quadruple successful if you build your brand right now, focus on brand, and businesses affected need to keep the brand front and center. Businesses not affected definitely need to be long game brand building.
Right.
Build up your PR, build up your audience loyalty, build up your community involvement, and corporate culture.
Yep.
These are the businesses that are allowing people to work from home, even if they don't need to. They're going to go volunteer at places that need the support, donate blood, or go to the food bank, or whatever it is that you can do in your community. Volunteering at your local hospital, taking something that has nothing to do with manufacturing gowns and masks and do that. Like literally, we took our break room and made it a place to sew hospital masks.
Right.
Fantastic, because you can afford to allow the employees to do that. It's good for corporate culture. You're the business that people want to work with in the future.
Right.
You're the preferred employer if you'll do these things. Support other employees. These are the folks that are. We're retooling our factory to make ventilators because we can afford to.
Right.
Fantastic. Do it. Build up that goodwill and be a good community player, because your community is going to lose small businesses and they're going to need other solid businesses. So be that person. Support your small businesses. Definitely support your subcontractors and your vendors, because they're being affected by the supply chain as well. So believe it or not, there are businesses out there barely being affected by this. They still can find advantage in it.
Absolutely.
And at the end of the day, like I said earlier, starting with the SWOT analysis, you can take any challenge, any setback, anything that's a negative in your business, the weaknesses of your business or the threats to your business. That's this side of the SWOT, right? There's strengths and opportunities over here. Weaknesses and threats are on this side. Right. The positives and the negatives. Anything negative affecting your business, you can always find a way to at least mitigate or make a positive out of. And here's an opportunity for this threat to become a positive for your business if you build in the right way, keep your brand in front of you, because you're ethical and you provide value. And I see a lot of people talking right now about sales, especially people in sales. They say, I feel weird about trying to sell right now.
Right.
But it goes back to, if you're selling properly anyways, if you're providing value for a customer or for an audience that they want, because you're being honest with them, you're communicating with them, it's not twisting arms, it's not lying to them, it's not bait and switch, it's none of that. A proper sales and marketing channels.
All of that stuff would be wrong in a normal environment
anyway. Exactly. If you're already operating properly, offering your product or service at a value, that goes back to why price gouging and these people that are hoarding, and that's why they're wrong, and that's exactly not what we're talking about.
Right.
But the idea that you're selling your product or service at a value, trying to keep your business open because it's good for everyone, employees, the community, etc., There's no reason to feel bad about that. And consumers are savvy. If you're not lying to them, if you're being honest with them, if your pricing has not changed, even if you're having to eat some costs because supply chain has changed to you, et cetera, you'll come out of this on the right way. People are not going to look at you and go, oh my God, they're still trying to sell that stuff.
Right.
They need to sell that stuff. They're a business.
Right.
You know, people still need new cars and all kinds of stuff.
Right.
People are going to buy those things, and that transaction supports our economy. This is why this is the Corona economy. Is its bigger picture. The small business goes under. That sucks for them and their employees, but the effects roll downhill, and eventually it affects the whole community.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there's a ton of reasons to look at this as an opportunity, and that sounds like you're being, opportunistic in an unethical way. I don't mean it that way. An opportunity to improve your business and continue to provide value to your customers and client. If you're providing value at a premium, the premium is on value, not the premium is on profitability, then you can't feel bad and won't feel bad and will come out ahead in your public persona as a business that survived doing it the right way.
Exactly. Bam. There you go.
So you're not taking advantage. You're not being unethical if you're providing value.
Right.
You're being honest, upfront. You're being transparent as possible, and giving people and they'll decide. If they decide
people still need stuff,
they still need stuff, and if they decide they're not buying that now because their own pocketbook is tightening up, that's perfectly fine because you're not twisting, you're not tricking. There's lots of ways you can engage that's providing value that is ethical. And if it's ethical, you shouldn't feel weird or awkward or odd about selling it in a proper manner. So keep selling the right way. Keep your business open so that you can protect your employees, protect yourself and your family. Every business owner, that's how they feed their family.
Right.
Everyone who works in the business, they collect paychecks, they collect dividends. That's how they pay that's how they support their families. That's how our vendors are supported by our business staying open, our subcontractors. And then ultimately, all these people getting to do business, collect paychecks, pay their payroll taxes. We pay taxes on the cost of doing business itself. That supports our local community even more so than the federal government. Right. But your local community, your state, the country as a whole, we're part of a global population, so the globe depends on small businesses staying open. That's why it's so important right now for all of you who run a small business, work at a small business, make decisions in a small business, to take everything we're talking about in this podcast and take it to heart. Make these changes, adjust, adopt, pivot if you have to, and stay alive. It's that important to all of us.
It's very important for sure.
Too many people get cynical about business. Business is how people support their families and how they support their communities. And so it's really important that small businesses stay open and stay viable. And that's really my concern right now is if we lose even 20% of the small businesses in this country, it pulls the entire economy down to a point where people really struggle to feed their family and keep them in housing. And no one wants that.
Right.
We want the exact opposite of that. That's a whole lot. I said a whole lot.
You said a whole lot.
I told you going in I would talk a lot. I didn't know I was going to talk this much, but I'm happy that I did. Yeah. It's been weighing on me the last couple of weeks. I'm trying to do my part to just help as many businesses, big and small, communicate this information, be available to talk to people, just help. Hopefully someone listens to this podcast right now and they took some nuggets, they took some things that apply to their situation and like, oh, that's right, I can do that. I should be doing this. I feel better about selling. I feel better about doing what I need to do because I'm providing value. Whatever it is you brought, fantastic. I'm hopeful. Please let us know what you liked, what you weren't sure about. If you want more information about any of these, because that was a whole lot, let us know. I'll try to contact you via social media, email, a phone call, a Zoom meeting.
Right.
I would say a cup of coffee, but that doesn't apply these days.
Well, you can get your cup and I'll get my cup.
We have all of that on our website. Right. Ways to contact us directly or through a Zoom meeting. You can schedule it on a calendar if you can't do it today. Let us know what you need to know, information you need, how we can help you, how we can help your small business survive this thing. We're going to come out of this within months, not years. Go back to what we would call normal. It's still going to be changed. It's going to be different. There are going to be lessons learned.
Right.
It'll be a new normal. Hopefully, though, it'll feel very normal. But if you come out of it stronger than you went into it, you survive this, and you have new tools, new opportunities, maybe new audiences or new chances to build loyalty. There's so much value you can come out of that. And then finally, because I hit it so hard in the middle, I want to end with this. Go back to your business plan. Go back to the SWOT. take a good hard look at the whole thing. Right now, you're really being stressed on what your strengths are and what your weaknesses are. You should understand them. If there are things not on there that you're seeing weakness today or you're seeing strength today, get that on the SWOT. Think about your opportunities moving forward, and please fill out the threat section of your SWOT. Make sure you understand this threat, because other things that are of this scale, it doesn't have to be a pandemic, but of the global scale or supply chain or things of that nature, are going to be threats to your business. You need to have contingency plans. You need to have your communication protocols. You need to have those things in place. Now, right now, you're trying to keep your doors open, but if you're more solid than just keeping your doors open, or you're in a good place, the last segment about being in a really good place, focus on make sure that the threat in your SWOT analysis is really filled out and that you're prepared, and then you're helping other people do the same thing.
Exactly.
That was a whole lot, folks. There's probably some stuff I skipped in my notes. I tried to make notes, but there's some stuff I was going too fast on. It's all good. We appreciate you guys listening to the podcast. I definitely appreciate if you have been listening for the entire 45 minutes so far. Really appreciate that. Ask questions. Hit us up on social media. Email us, call us, get a Zoom meeting. However we can help your small business, we will have a conversation with you. We will give you as much advice as we can, and hopefully we'll all come through the Corona economy back to the economy in a short time. So until then,
don't forget to hit that subscribe button.
Because we will continue these conversations. Yep. We'll continue to give you as much information as possible via the podcast, the video series, via our social media, etc. Now someone's calling on the phone, so I'm going to wrap it up with that. Until next time, good luck.
Ciao.